Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. We're here with Colin Dougherty from Zenlytic, but he's also recently sold an e-commerce company and he's accomplished many amazing things. So we're going to be talking about a whole variety of subjects, right? About data warehousing, talking to your data, growing a company, selling a company, and so much more, maybe even including moving to a new office and how that can be exciting. So Colin, glad to be talking to you.
Robert, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you too. And I for like a few minutes only, I looked around and I checked out Zenlytic and watched some YouTube videos and didn't quite fully get my head around it. But that's what a podcast conversation is fun about, to have those kind of surface level conversations. And so just to know about you and your background and what your focus is, like, what are you all about? What makes you unique and stand out, and why should we pay attention?
Sure. Yeah. I've been in marketing for a while now, I think. And just my career has been really exceptional. And I've been really lucky with a lot of the opportunities that I've had, which have put me in great positions to learn from really, really smart people. And that's allowed me to actually apply a lot of those learnings to grow these companies. And it's just been a fun journey so far.
Well, fantastic. And there's like this repeat topic that seems to come up every now and then, where there's like two mindsets, right? There's like an employee mindset of just surviving through the day and just putting out the fires and just grinding. And then there's either like the career mindset or the entrepreneurial mindset of all the kind of post-scarcity activities, right? Activities like how you're right here with me on a podcast doing PR, or like how when you have like a decent job or career, you go and like find other opportunities, or when you're growing a business, you kind of like forego your own needs or your own payment, and you focus more on hiring other employees and kind of growing the business. And so does that come to your mind sometimes, this kind of idea that there's the straightforward and there's like what I should be doing, but many times we have to kind of like think counterintuitively in order to get more?
Yeah, it's like the Robert Frost poem. Like, there are two roads that verge in a yellow wood, and I chose the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And I think people have that opportunity basically every day, where they can just, like you said, kind of phone it in, clock out, put out the fires, or you can start to do some really serious, crazy stuff, the extracurriculars, so to speak. Building a personal brand on LinkedIn, building a personal brand on Twitter, connecting with people in person, scheduling coffee chats, trying to do these experimental type projects, which I think have the real impact, other than just like clocking in day to day, making sure no fires are there.
Extracurriculars. And so how do we focus on that? Because I imagine maybe there's some aspect of like the mastermind effect, and like the people that you surround yourself and people that you speak to. Like, how do we tap into that? Because I feel like people like you and me, we're doing that, right? We're podcasting. We don't have to, but we say, well, I'm thinking in terms of like abundance and getting more, but I'm always looking to up my game, and I'm jealous of these people that they'll be on like 100 podcasts, or they'll be on at networking events like every week, and they'll be consistent. So how do we kind of tap into the energy more, and how do we stay consistent with the extracurriculars?
Yeah, I think being consistent is really the hard part of it, because you can do it like every couple of weeks. I think everybody can just do it every couple of weeks, or every other week. But the consistency of it is such a hard thing, where you do it day in and day out. I think just the biggest thing for me, one of the biggest unlocks, is just like having new conversations with new people every day. Try to have like two or three. And what I mean by that is like not the typical LinkedIn DM where it's like, hey, here's exactly my service, blah, 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 blah. Like, I start all of my LinkedIn DMs with just like, hey, what's up, John? How are you doing? Nothing, no relation to Zenlytic, no relation to what I'm selling or who my background is. It's just like, hey, what's up? How are you? Good to connect. I think that's kind of where it starts. It's just like on a person to person basis.
Growing your network person to person, and then maybe forcing yourself to have this habit, have this routine of
Yeah.
as you said, speaking to people that you normally wouldn't speak with. And again, to be self-referential again, we're on a podcast, right? We're two dudes that probably wouldn't otherwise cross paths, but because we both said, I'll make that commitment to being open to new opportunities and making the connections, then I'm not just going to be so tunnel vision and only speaking to people that can help me. And so it helps to be curious and to kind of be open to these new ideas. So in speaking to that curiosity, tell me about Zenlytic. Tell me about what problem it solves and what it does and why it's so cool and fun.
Yeah, so Zenlytic is pretty wild. It basically solves the hallucination problem with large language models. So businesses have this thing that's called a data warehouse where you basically put all of your data for your entire business. What Zenlytic has done is we've made it so that you can talk directly to your data warehouse in a conversational style manner. And we made it so you can automatically report dashboards from it. So you don't have to do manual dashboarding anymore. So you can just say, hey, could I get the metrics for revenue for 2021 for months January and February? And then it'll automatically make the dashboard for you, make the report. You can export that. You can send that to everywhere. But it's really incredible because we included this thing, and this is getting a bit nerdy, but we included this thing called a semantic layer, which is basically guardrails to make sure that your data is 100% accurate every single time. So that's a big issue with large language models is they hallucinate, they give you wrong answers. But this thing which we incorporated into it, which is called the semantic layer, allows for 100% accuracy.
Well, that sounds super cool. And I like maybe every now and then I think about when I'm trying to solve a problem and I don't even know where to begin and I'm not even clear about the problem I'm solving. I feel like I go through the stage of just like journaling, of like writing things down, like, well, I want to know the answer to this, or I want to make a decision on that. And it feels kind of cumbersome to just to like kind of do this journaling and write these things down. And then I feel like I then have to almost be a coder and then translate that English wording into coding and figuring out what I want. And
Yeah.
I think that there's been those times when I work with someone to like crunch the numbers for me, and like it's always fun to be like, oh man, let me see like how this revenue stream's going, or compare this month to this month last year. And it's always cool just to kind of know that you're asking the right questions and being on the right track. And so that this is an interesting idea to use the large language model to kind of like merge those two things, right? To be able to say, well, I want to verbalize what my goal is and what the thing I'm curious about, and then being able to kind of see that visually and see it just happen magically. And so, and then also, so what you're talking about with this hallucination problem, from my limited understanding of large language models, is like if you go to Chat GPT and you say, what's 150 plus 7, and it might give you the wrong answer, and you say like,
Yeah.
or it gives you the right answer, and you can trick it and say, oh, the answer is 2, and it'll say, oh, I'm sorry, sir, here's the correct answer. And it's kind of fun,
Exactly.
but also you think like, well, what's the use of it? So then you solve this problem. And so like, how is that done? Like, is it a matter of like someone puts in the English word and it like translates it into like code, or like how do you do these guardrails? How do you solve this problem?
Yeah, so the semantic layer is it is basically a dictionary of all of your business terms laid out completely and corresponding to what exactly everything means. So what does revenue mean for you? What does churn mean for you? And then Zenlytic connects all of those so that when you say, hey, what's my revenue for 2022? It knows exactly what that is because you've already defined the term in the semantic layer. It's just basically a massive dictionary of all your business terms, and Zenlytic compiles that whole dictionary for you so that it's 100% accurate.
Well, fun. And so you've given a couple of these examples of how it's used. Like you say, give me the revenue
Mhm.
for 2022. And is that what typically people use it for? Or like, what's kind of the straightforward usage? And then what's maybe like, what does that then lead to?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasonings for you could either do the revenue, you could do best marketing channels, you could do a ton of different questions. Basically, any questions you want to ask your data directly, um, it's pretty incredible. And we have some companies inside that on Zenlytic that are in kind of the private equity space. And so you can imagine what it's like when you hook up private equity data inside of something that can do this and then is 100% accurate, so that you could see potentially revenue forecasting, you could see industry churn, you could start to see serious industry trends as they start to progress out. And then what will happen is Zenlytic will automatically graph all this for you, which is insanely wild, because what we're doing now is basically manual reporting in the combination of either Excel, or you're dealing with a large BI tool like Tableau, which is pretty slow. So what we've done is done automatic reporting with 100% accuracy, which is pretty revolutionary.
That is pretty cool. And so how do people sometimes go wrong with this? Is there a way to misuse the tool or miss the point?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is just in the early stages of making sure you define all your terms that you're trying to do. Once you define all your terms and once you input everything that Zenlytic needs to define for your business, you can't go wrong from there, because the AI Zoe will never hallucinate and try to push a number to you that isn't correct. And that's super important for some of the businesses that we're dealing with in potentially fintech or health tech, where there isn't a luxury where you can only be right 90% of the time, especially for healthcare records or financials. Like you have to be right 100% of the time, no questions asked, because the data is so sensitive and so personal.
Amazing. And so when have these conversations about like AI, it's always we always talk about like the possibilities and how like it's almost like Star Trek, right? Like in Star Trek, if you talk to the computer and you said, draw me this diagram, put me this dashboard, you'd expect the computer to like put things on the screen and like create the charts and graphs. And it seems like we're finally there, or just about there. And so as far as you creating this tool and creating this platform, like, did you come across any difficulties? Were there like false starts or struggles, or just like, irritating problems that crept up when you were building this?
Yeah, I mean, I also do want to preface this with the fact that I am not the actual builder behind it. That's our founder, Paul, who is insanely smart, Harvard graduated, absolutely genius coder who put all of this together, extremely bright. So I will say he gets all the credit for creating this. And there were a ton of false starts with dealing with the code for the semantic layer and dealing with all of these issues. And I think one of the things that we're constantly dealing with on our end that we're trying to improve for customers is the AI that we're using for the conversation. Its name is Zoe, and our intention is to have Zoe faster and faster every single day. So right now, she's going to answer a question for you in 10 seconds, but the goal is like instant. It's type of question, Zoe shoots something out right back at you. And so we're constantly trying to refine her and make her faster every single day so that it's the best possible it can be.
Fantastic. And so they call that the royal we, right? Where you say, I'm in this company, but it's not me, but it also is, because I'm part of a larger whole. And so
Exactly.
And so you're kind of shining a light on, well, sometimes there are problems, especially in your business, that there's so much work ahead of you that the only real way to tackle it is to just have that consistent daily progress. So you think about even something as simple as like saying, well, I have a web page and Google tells me it needs to load in 2 seconds or less, and I have all this images and JavaScript and all these different things, and how do I even tackle that? And you say, well, if my website loads at 7 seconds, maybe today we'll shave this one thing off, get it to 6.8. Or if you say, well, my conversion rate needs to increase, or my email deliverability, or my funnel, or whatever, there's such a mountain of work ahead of you that you just say, well, instead of trying to get there or being impatient at how long it's taking, just if every day, if I'm just doing a little better, if I did 6 push-ups yesterday and I do 7 push-ups today, well, then I can feel good about just that slow but consistent progress. And it's like a tortoise and the hare situation, where like just the always working at it beats the quick fix. And so do you have anything to say about like your overall like entrepreneurial problems, right? Like we've been like there's things about like growing a company or dealing with like your mindset or being organized enough to exit a company. Do you have anything like as far as just like entrepreneurial advice that you think is really shareable or really important?
Yeah, I think one of them is it's a little bit to your point where you tackle it every single day, but I think a lot of people miss the second part of that, where they never really look back and see kind of how far up the mountain they've climbed. They just think that they're tackling something every single day, day after day, and it's getting a little bit better. But like it's really important to take a pause at your step in the mountain and then turn around and look down and see actually how far you've come up that mountain from where you started. And it's like that's super energizing to say, oh man, like 4 months ago, we didn't even have a website. We didn't have any customers. We didn't have XYZ. And now you're here. And it may not be all the way up the mountain that you're trying to get to, but it's a really good indicator of if the progress you've made. I don't think enough people do that and take the pause and really look back for a sec.
I agree that that's a good reminder. You're making me think of specifically one time I was in Boy Scouts and we were climbing a mountain. I don't even remember what year it was, what age I was, but we were climbing this mountain and I looked back and when you're just exerting yourself and you have all the blood flowing and like your vision gets kind of like I don't know, the weird fuzzies. I remember looking back
Yeah,
and we were at this one point and walking up the mountain where just like we could just look back and just see like just all this nothingness. It was like looking at the Grand Canyon almost, right? Just like seeing just nothing, no human civilization, right? Just landscape.
yeah,
And I just remember it specifically because like the weird blurry vision just from all the blood circulation was just kind of like I was shocked just as much as that as like the view. But then I was like, that was a good lesson that stuck with me. Just like look back at how far you've come, and it doesn't and congratulating yourself temporarily doesn't mean that you're being lazy and doesn't mean you don't have further to go, but it's like necessary fuel to help you out, and it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other, right? It doesn't need to be that in order to progress you have to be super harsh on yourself. And I think that's kind of a with all this podcast interviewing I do, that's a lesson that comes up every few weeks, is just that whole idea of, well, if you had all these things that you did, don't just look at the future. Or like me personally, when I have like a to-do list, instead of I used to just like delete things when I was done with them, but now I kind of keep them there, or like keep them there but crossed out, and for at
yeah,
least for a few days, just to be like, look at all this stuff that I did. and like
exactly.
and like you look back at past like companies or videos or content you made and you kind of cringe, but that's cringing is good, right? Because it means that you
Yeah.
progress. So it kind of reframes that and flips that. And so this is all wonderful to think about from a mindset, productivity, and business point of view. And so if someone says, okay, well, I like all this cool stuff that Colin has created and helped to build and market, and I want to check out this, how do I say it again? Zenolytic? Is that right?
Zenlytic. Yeah, that's correct.
All right, Zenlytic. See, I didn't want to Zenlytic. And so if someone says, well, Zenlytic sounds amazing, this ability to talk to my data warehouse and build the dashboards, how does someone know if they're a good fit versus not a good fit, and how do they take action on it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say if the main thing is companies have to have a data warehouse in order to use Zenlytic. And so we have a lot of people that come to the website and they book demos and they really want to get involved with Zenlytic, but they don't have a data warehouse. And so it's a little bit limiting for them because we have to basically kind of wait for them to graduate to that data warehouse. But if a company is that scale where they have a data warehouse and they're starting to have serious data problems, that's the level where you start to consider a serious BI tool like Zenlytic.
Fantastic. So that is the prerequisite, is get that data warehouse in place. That way Zenlytic can interface with it. And so how do we take action on it? Is it zenlytic.com?
Yep, zenlytic.com. You can go right there. And then if you don't feel like doing that and you want to reach out directly to me, I'm always available on LinkedIn, always down to chat.
Fantastic. And you practice what you preach, right? The whole adding on LinkedIn,
Absolutely.
not having your ulterior motive. But then if they do want to know more, then that's also what your passion is. So to find Colin on LinkedIn, that's first name Colin, Colin, last name Dougherty, Dougherty, and then Zenlytic.com. Can you spell that out for me? Because I don't have it in front of me. You don't want to mess that up.
Yeah, so it's Zenlytic.
Zenlytic.com, and we'll see you there. And as we wrap up our conversation here, Colin, do you have a favorite saying or quote or moral or lesson that you feel like leaving us with to really wrap this up?
Ooh, there's one that I've been messing around with recently where it's Latin. I can't remember the Latin pronunciation for it, but it's I will either find a way or I will make a way. And I think that's really important. And so either you got to find a way or you got to make a way. But, turning around and retreating is not an option. So
Yeah,
that's the plan.
that's back to the Robert Frost, right? There's the two roads
There you
diverging,
go.
and like, sure, technically there's the road that you came back with, but that's a third road that doesn't fit. So either there's the road to find the way where the trail is blazed, or make a way where on the off chance the trail is not blazed, and blaze your own trail. So find a way or make a way. And the very next step for you out there in podcast land is to add Colin Dougherty on LinkedIn and go to zenlytic.com. We will see you there. And thank you, Colin, for showing up and dazzling us and amazing us with some advice, some cool business stories, some advice on our data warehousing. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you again.